Today is a chilly, what is today's date? March 26th, 2023. Ooh, let's see. Well, today is a chilly Saturday, March 25th, 2023. We're at the Middleborough Lakeville MBTA station in the namesake communities. This is on the former New Haven Railroad Old Colony line to Hyannis, Massachusetts. We're going to catch train 1008 from here to Boston today. My wife and I are spending the weekend in Newport, and we felt like taking a little day trip to Boston today. So we're going to ride this historic former New Haven Railroad Old Colony line. We were debating whether or not to go to Providence to catch the train or here, but here has more frequent service than Providence. It's like every 90 minutes. Out of Providence on the commuter, it's every 2 hours, unless you want to splurge and take Amtrak. Here we're looking down the old Colony line towards Hyannis. During the summer months, the Cape Flyer operates weekend trains from Boston South Station to Hyannis. Extremely popular. Service was extended to this station. Well, it ended back in '59. New Haven Railroad was a basket case back then. They couldn't afford the service. They were losing money like crazy, so they suspended the Old Colony service and they built the Southeast Expressway. But this was revived, as were other lines, in 1997. Service to Greenbush was revived in 2007. So the Old Colony lines are quite busy today. Some people refer to that as the New Colony lines, but old hard heads and old railroaders will say that it was always called the Old Colony lines. Any reference to New Colony lines is made mainly to exploit the revived service on the line. That's it. Okay, parking at this Middleborough Lakeville station is fairly generous, especially on the weekends. You can see there's a lot of empty space here. But you would think that maybe MBTA would give commuters a break on the weekends and not charge for parking. Instead, you have to go on to paybyphone.com and register your license plate number, your credit card number, your location number. And thankfully, we got here early before the train departed to do all of this. So, I don't know, it's just a lot of commuter railroads on the weekends just let you park for free. Well, I know Metro wasn't guilty of that. I had to park at Route 59 on a Saturday, and I still had to pay a couple of bucks. But it was only a couple of bucks, thank goodness. Well, look what we have here. Wild turkeys, a symbol of Massachusetts. Well, when you think of Massachusetts, you think of the Pilgrims. When you think of the Pilgrims, you think of Thanksgiving. And of course, turkeys. Okay, at 10:03, arriving is train 1005 from South Station, Boston. Last stop. It's got one of those Garfields on the point. Well, riding on a Kawasaki-built car, built in 1990, rebuilt by Alstom around 2017. All these cars that operate on the New Colony lines, or should I say the Old Colony lines revived, have power doors. They're not manually operated. All right, here's the inside of this double-decker car we're riding on. And when these were first put into service, they were very heavy on the rails. They had to relay ties on this line, these lines down here in particular, because of the weight of the cars. They're much heavier than other double-decker cars. And as you can see, they are a bit different from other double-decker cars and other railroads in that the seats face the center instead of away from the center. Metro North seems to follow that practice on their M7s and M3s. All right, time is 10:45. Train 1008, bound for South Station, Boston. Today is there's a hockey game being played at TD Garden Arena. Boston Bruins against the Tampa Bay Lightning. A lot of Bruins fans on the train. Bruins are the best team in the NHL. They've already got 55 victories with 11 games to play. They should easily win 60-something games, becoming only the 4th team in NHL history to win 60 games in the NHL regular season. But thus far, only one of those teams has won the Cup. That was the 76-77 Montreal Canadiens. The Detroit Red Wings in 95-96 did it, and Tampa Bay, I think in 2018-2019 did it, but they did not win the Cup. Let's hope that the Bruins do better. And I'm a Maple Leafs fan, but I'm resigned to the fact that they're going to get creamed if they have to go up against the Bruins. They look awfully tough. Frightfully tough. It's a very rural area out here, but I do know that CSX runs local freights out of here. Yes, two. Both of us. Thank you. Over there's the T's yard. I see an F40 PH-3C over there. Thank you.
We can pass.
A bargain basement ride to go after, and this looks like a CSX facility here. On the weekends you can ride on the commuter rail anywhere for a day for $10. Anywhere. Can't beat that. I see a CSX lash up here. Interesting power. That. Whoa, look at all these beautiful GP40-2s. Wow. And they dispatched several locals out of this yard.
We're going to have to.
I think those are former B&O Heritage engines. Well, let's hope we can make it to Boston in good shape with this junk pushing us. Portion of the ride, I've ridden this once before in the 90s. They started running down here in 97. A lot of woods. So when you get closer to the city, like around Braintree, you start to parallel the MBTA Red Line subway. And then you approach South Station, go by the Southampton Street Yard, join up with the line, the Fairmount line, and go into Boston, get some views of the skyline. Sounds like this cab car has a K3LA type one. This service was left for dead in '59. For 40 years almost, it was dormant, but it's been revived with a vengeance. These are very well patronized trains. wife and I were spending the weekend in Newport, Rhode Island, and we were wondering what we could do on this middle day. And it was a choice of either driving to Kingston, Rhode Island, taking Amtrak and paying a higher fare, or going to Providence and taking the T, but that runs only every 2 hours, or driving to Middleborough and taking the T, runs every 90 minutes roughly. Can't argue about the price. Gloomy day today. It's supposed to rain later, but it's holding off for now. Well, in the way I'll mention any kind of historic reference I can think of regarding the Boston area. It's got a lot of history. I love the city of Boston. If it wasn't so far away, I'd spend as much time there as I do in Philly. Some remnant of a railroad spur there. Now these old colony lines are pretty rustic once you get out of the Boston area. This is my first on-train video on a MBTA commuter rail train. The service, I should point out, is operated by Hyannis. Reminds me of the Long Island Railroad out east. I haven't ridden this particular line since soon after it opened in the late 90s. station is Bridgewater. Platforms on the other side. We're about 27 miles from Boston. Bridgewater State University. Yeah, the horns on these cab cars sound pretty good. Very nice horns. I know the locomotives generally have K5LA horns. Sounds very much like a K3LA, very similar to the SEPTA Silverliner 5 ones. There's a passing siding here. .25 165 milepost. Country out here. Okay, Massachusetts is on my top 10 list of favorite states.
Yes. Forecast, you walk this side, forecast that way, but you gotta come back, okay?
Murphy Murphys have a song called The State of Massachusetts. It's a cool song, very lively tune, but the correct phrase is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's one of 4 commonwealths, the others being Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Kentucky. Dropkick Murphys, if you've never heard their music, they're a rock band, an Irish theme rock band from Boston. Excellent, excellent music. In fact, right now, I'm doing what's named after one of their songs, Shipping Up to Boston. Songs written about Boston. One of my favorites is Dirty Water. Love that dirty water. Oh, Boston, you're my home. Driving Campello. And who can resist Sweet Caroline at Fenway Park? I'm a Long Island native, but I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. I incur the wrath of many back home for that. But hey, it is what it is. My favorite ball player of all time was number 8, Carl Yastrzemski. Another favorite was big number 14, Jim Rice. Both of them Hall of Famers. Jim Rice was awesome. Brute strength. He could just flick his wrist in his sleep and the ball would go 400 feet. Great hitter. Not many ball players have gotten 400 total bases in a season. But he did in 1978 when he won the MVP. Red Sox aren't doing too well lately, but hopefully they made some off-season acquisitions that'll help them. But right now, the big story in town are the Bruins. I hadn't really been following the Bruins until recently, but just looking at what they've been doing day in and day out, it's just unbelievable. I hope they don't go the way the 70-71 Bruins did. That year they won 57 games, and they think they smashed 37 NHL records, and they did what they were very good at, losing to the Montreal Canadiens in the quarterfinals. But they won the Cup next year against the New York Rangers. Ranger fans, eat your heart out. It's another sighting. One thing you should be able to see, which is a staple in the Boston area, are the triple-decker houses. Coming into a good-sized town here. That's quite a structure. this station's got an island platform. This is Brockton, Massachusetts. Good-sized town south of Boston. There's a guy wearing a Bruins shirt. That's their current home uniform design. Years ago, it used to be their road uniform. I tell you, these double-decker cars, you can really hear the brakes being released when you're sitting in here. Compared to double-deckers on the Long Island, New Jersey Transit, MARC, VRE, these are the most unique. Listen to the brake release. Yeah, that's really loud. Sounds like me at 5 o'clock at the end of my workday. Happily, I'm not working anymore. Whatever work I do try to do, it's fun work. But I still get tired. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 68 going on 69, but I know one guy who lives in New Hampshire. He makes videos of 24 hours at certain railroad hotspots. And he's in his upper 70s and he was doing that. Staying up 24 hours in one place, staying up all night with his generators and his lights, and if he can do that in his upper 70s, that makes me feel good. Here's a triple-decker. And you'll see plenty more of them. Middleborough train. Couldn't make out the power, but it sounded like it might have been a General Motors product. Talk about those triple-deckers. How many movies have you seen with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon around triple-decker houses? Those are two notable Boston area actors. Big Red Sox fans. This is Montello Station. All these stations on the old colony lines have high platforms. I don't visit Boston enough. I'd like to, but I feel right at home in Boston. I'm a Red Sox fan and an Irish Catholic. Fabulous Boston area movie I recommend watching is The Departed. Great cast, great plot. Boston area movie was The Verdict with Paul Newman. It's kind of a lawyer down on his luck who finally wins a big case. And there's the movie Mystic River. Have the movie Spotlight. Boston's a great city. I love it. And my wife and I are just here for a little quick day trip. I'm going to go back later this afternoon. I'm going to try to ride the Freedom Trail tour. Maybe go to the Bean Pot Pub for dinner. Play it by ear. Beantown Pub, actually. The one thing I gotta get my hands on is a nice big bowl of New England clam chowder. And a bowl of baked beans. I think the Beantown Pub has both. Last night in Newport we had dinner. We had salmon and carrot sauce. Oh, it was delicious. Okay, this is Randolph, Massachusetts. Getting close. Holbrook, Randolph. 15 miles from Boston. /926. And another siding here. don't think much is run on that. It's like it's served an industry, but not lately. Well, somewhere around here we meet up with the line from Kingston comes in. I think that came in way back. I don't even know exactly where it comes in. And then you have the Greenbush line that comes in. It's a fairly new line, started in 07, Greenbush. Serves Greenbush and Situate, not Scituate, Situate. MBTA Red Line yard. We're coming into Braintree. Braintree is the starting point for the Red Line on this section of it. Braintree is a very significant town. It's the birthplace of presidents John Adams and John Quincy Adams. It's a nice town. I've had breakfast there. I used to stay in a Motel 6 that was near here. Well, here's the Red Line station for Braintree. The station for the commuter rail is a little ways further north. There used to be a Motel 6 here that I used to stay at. I loved coming up here and staying there. Just walk out and catch the T into the city. It was very reasonably priced, but it's closed down years ago. There've been shenanigans there, crime and drug dealings. I just took a glimpse. It's just still standing there, all boarded up. Oh, here you can see the two tracks of the Red Line. New Haven Railroad used to have a yard here at Braintree. Well, there's still one that Conrail served and CSX now serves. New Haven used to run a manifest freight from Braintree to Cedar Hill Yard in New Haven. In fact, a famous veteran New Haven Railroad engineer hailed from here, Herb Clark. He retired, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s. Talk about John Adams. He had a cousin, Samuel Adams, who was born in Boston, who created quite a bit of mischief around here. So much so that a new country was formed eventually. He was a very strong resistor of the British occupation. He resented the taxes and the treatment. And without knowing it, he was planting the seeds of a new nation. He was one of the architects of the Declaration of Independence. Where would Boston be without him? Eventually the British were driven out of Boston by a hard-nosed general by the name of George Washington. The British general that was occupying Boston at the time, General Gage, was scared to death of George Washington and his army, that he had little difficulty being talked into leaving the city by Washington. It would be paralleling this Red Line for quite a ways. So you see a few passing trains. The Red Line goes all the way to I think Porter Square on the other side of the city. I think the terminal is alewife. That's a married woman that likes to drink beer. Okay, the road out there is Massachusetts Route 3. Okay, the red line is shifted to the opposite side. At least the Braintree portion of it. The Ashmont portion of the red line should be joining us shortly on this side. It's quite a broad way from around Savin Hill into JFK UMass. 4 red line tracks and the 1 commuter rail track. We just passed the area of the Quincy Adams Red Line station where there's a parking garage. I've used that parking garage at times. We're in the community of Quincy, Massachusetts. Quincy, middle name of the President John Quincy Adams, the 6th president. I'm told there's good fishing here. Brakes working. Yeah, we're in a bit of a trench here. Arriving Quincy Center, downtown Quincy. City of Quincy, Massachusetts. It's going to darken here. Okay, our next stop should be JFK UMass. It's a joint commuter rail and red line station, as Quincy Center was. But JFK UMass is a much busier station. This section of the red line that parallels us down here serves another couple of stations before the Ashmont line joins up. Wollaston, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and North Quincy. Line had gone to Ashmont for a number of years, but the Braintree line actually opened up in 1980. I think it went as far as Quincy in the early 70s. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember being in Boston in 1971 in the summer and seeing them testing on the spur. Got a siding here. And we're racing a red line train going to town. Opposite side is the North Quincy Red Line station. Shortly, we'll be crossing over the Neponset River. Ooh. There goes an old colony train powered by some junk. No, I am not a fan of those engines. More F40 PH-3Cs, the better. Okay, here's the Neponset River. There's a triple decker. Should see a lot more of them. Right around here, the red line from Ashmont should be joining up with us on this side. Here it is. That connects with the red line trolley that comes up from Mattapan. Got the red line to the right of us and the red line to the left of us, and there's downtown Boston. Train bound for Ashmont. This is the Savin Hill station. It's a great place to watch trains here.
JFK station.
Forgive me, I'm from Long Island. I might mispronounce some of these locations, but we got some pretty nasty names down there too. Look at this, shrink wrap train. Not exactly breaking any speed records. All right, that track coming down the ramp, that's the red line from Braintree. You got the two different red lines converging at this stop. Between us and those two red lines, it's a very busy place, JFK UMass. is an out-of-service train. Okay, next stop, South Station, Boston. It's the most interesting part of the ride right here. Between the yards and the cityscapes and all the tracks. The tall building on the right you see is the new John Hancock Tower. And the tall building immediately to its left is the Prudential Tower. Okay, here the red line leaves us and goes into the tunnel to head downtown. This area, I believe, is called Southie, has a large Irish population. There's the tunnel right there. Some of the red line trains go to a storage yard up ahead. Here's the Amtrak catenary system. The Southampton Street Yard for Amtrak. See some equipment here. This elevated structure is the red line leads to their storage yard up ahead. Great to be back in Boston. Haven't been here since January of last year. There's one of those horrid looking things. They use a lot of those engines on the south side lines of the T. There's another one. Yeah, the T's yard and shop for the red line is on the opposite side. A much more interesting approach to South Station than the Amtrak line. Years ago in New Haven days, this area was called the Dover Street Yard. Amtrak has quite a facility here. Maintenance center. It's one of 3 Acela Express maintenance bases. Boston, Sunnyside, New York, and Washington are the others. All right, there's a Y that leads to the Amtrak line to Back Bay, down towards Ruggles, Forest Hills, 128. Also used by T trains to Forge Park, Needham Heights, Stoughton. In fact, we got an Amtrak train departing right now. 2. He's heading for his next stop at Back Bay, Boston. I remember years ago, back in the early 70s, with just a few tracks here, you could see the sky without any obstructions. South Station was not very busy back then. Not much in the way of commuter rail. Really not that much in the way of long distance service, but since then it's really blossomed. You got commuter trains going every which way. They electrified this thing in the early 21st century. Wires everywhere, and this is one of the busiest stations on the corridor. Okay, arriving South Station, Boston. Great to be back. Good ride. And we're on time.
South Station, final stop.
What do I dislike the most? Those engines or Superliner 4s, right? Superliner 4s look like Raquel Welch by comparison. Here we are. Welcome to Boston, Massachusetts. Yeah.